Welcome to the Sellernomics podcast, where we share valuable tips and information in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Each week, we deliver the best interviews with some of the top Amazon personalities in the industry to help you grow your business. Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at getida.com/Sellernomics. And now, here are your hosts, Rob Stanley and Lisa Kinski.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Sellernomics. My name is Lisa Kinski and I'm joined by my co-host Rob Stanley. And today we have with us Lokesh Parashar with ADK India. And we're actually going to be talking about the India hosted buyer program for US e-commerce sellers. So this is a brand new topic for me and Rob. We're definitely interested to learn more. So let's go on ahead and bring Lokesh on. Lokesh, how are you?
Great. How are you, Rob and Lisa?
Yeah,
doing very well. So good to see you again. So Lokesh, let's jump straight into the content here. I know we're talking about the hosted buyer program, but I think there's another group that we have to talk about first, which is the Federation of Business Ambassadors. So what is that? Abbreviated as FBA, but not the FBA that we're used to. So who is this other FBA?
So incidentally, the both names are FBA. This is the Federation of Business Ambassadors. DBA, Federation of Buying Agents, is the formal name in the Government of India registration of a non-for-profit society. As you know, buying agents are sourcing consultants, buying office, buying houses, sourcing managers, even brand office category heads who are in India to pretty much manage the sourcing functions, buying function of any company. So this federation has all the service providers who are providing supply chain manager jobs and tasks and roles to all the brands, whether they're retailers, wholesalers, importers, and of course, now the new stream for the last decade of e-commerce sellers as well. So Federation is primarily working in three different domains, which I call as 3G principles. So first G is the growth of the business of buying agents. How do you grow more buying agents, sourcing agents? How do you make them achieve efficiency? How do they scale vendor management? The critical roles of an agent is to offer services to a client, and we focus on that growth area. That how do you improve that area? Second G is generation of business opportunities. That's where the topic of the day-to-day, the hosted buyer program, we'll discuss more about that, where we invite overseas clients to visit India, and a wonderful platform where we are offering a lot of incentives to sellers, to importers, wholesalers, retailers to look at India as well as the sourcing destination. And third G is grievances, where I think I would say GETIDA as G also falls under the same thing, where we look at all the grievances which can happen in your business, whether it's payment issues, whether it's disputes, legal disputes, whether it's because it's an international business between suppliers sitting in India, buyers from all over the world. There is an entity which is representing the buyers in India, and they're also managing a lot of issues at the factory level. So, and other service providers like freight forwarders and packaging companies and audit companies and inspection companies. So, a lot of entities get involved to make it happen. So, there could be certain issues when supply chain get disrupted, and then the blame games start to end. It's financial mess. Federation has a legal desk which manages all the grievances. These are the three different areas where the Federation of Business Ambassadors operate out of India to manage supply chain issues for sellers, e-commerce sellers, and other people who are buying from India. Make sense?
I think so.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a little bit like the Better Business Bureau here. They like help you with like the putting it together and grievances and things like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I also don't know a ton about the Better Business Bureau either. So,
well, that's a government of I think US BBB. This is purely a non-for-profit started by volunteers.
Gotcha.
Got it. Yeah. So Lokesh, tell us a little bit, how does that relate directly to the hosted buyer program, or how did the hosted buyer program kind of come out of that? Or maybe it came first. Tell us a little more about that.
India has been always a second or maybe a third choice for sellers when they are looking at private label, when they're looking to get out of the wholesale and retail arbitrage and they want to do it. The obvious choice becomes China. Or now in recent times, China would be now second or third. the first would be like Mexico or somewhere near. So India has always been second, now third, or maybe fourth option to explore. And that is the reason we have a lot of export promotion incentives given by the government to the exporters. We never had any association, any community which was empowered, which was created, which can help the sourcing agents. And that was a thought we had in 2014. uh, Myself and another competitive buying house, we became good friends. Just like now, every e-commerce seller is in competition, but they're traveling together. They're meeting conferences. They share ideas. That's how we also share it and say, okay, let's build a federation where we can grow this sourcing community business, where we can think of sourcing community business. And as you must say, for every entity, for every business, the generation of opportunity, clients, business growth, that's become very important. And that is where we said, okay, how do we make sure that when the buyers are traveling to India, all the export promotion council started by Indian government are primarily looking at meeting the exporters of products, where they are paying a lot of incentives to them, wherein we are not getting anything because we are not part of the product exporters. We are service exporters. And we don't have anything in India which is promoting that export promotion council activity. So we started it on our own as an entity. And that is where we say whatever the government of India is giving to the sellers, to the importers and wholesalers to come to India, attend the trade fairs, meet the exporters, they give them flights, they give them hotels, factory visits, pretty much everything on ground in India. We provide that under the hosted buyer program to every e-commerce seller or any importer or wholesaler which qualify under our category of products.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
Just to
And-
follow up, what is there
Yeah.
specific categories?
I would say yes. On the website, you'll see 18 broadly different product categories. It covers a lot of product categories. We have broadly mentioned, I would say, in terms of industry. But I would explain it like any labor-intensive factory, anything where you have a lot of labor-intensive product. I am not talking about microchips. I'm not talking about electronics. I will also exclude anything which is pure engineering. You don't need sourcing agents in India for that. Wherever a seller has a problem in their supply chain, communication, even the consistency of quality coming again and again from the factory, delay in shipments, uh, consistent supply chain, a lot of lack of commitment. It happens in the labor intensive sector where maximum 80% of the factories are micro and medium and small enterprises. They're not organized, they are not mechanized factories, and that is where you need a sourcing agent in India. It's a completely different business for us in India as compared to China. And that is the reason we have to focus on those areas where we see maximum problem for a seller to source product from these factories. That's why we have identified these 18 different industries. They're mentioned on the website. They're also mentioned on the hosted web program webpage. And I would say identified all of them, almost all the categories we can cover.
Gotcha. Okay. And yeah, where can you had mentioned that there's a website. Is that where folks can register for the hosted buyer program? And then what makes a buyer eligible for the hosted buyer program?
So a new seller as well can be also eligible for it. We are not getting into a scale that you should be a minimum this amount of seller or a 7-figure seller or 8-figure seller, something like that. What we intend to see when you fill up the form is that you are a genuine business entity, that you are even if you're an e-commerce seller or you are an importer or a wholesaler, you must have your business registrations. You must have your all basic facilities and basic norms to do and certain identification. I would say in terms of a company, we do a verification, we do a Zoom call with them and we see the intention. Yes, they might be new, they might be just coming out and looking at India. So I would say quality matters us the most, not the quantity of your business.
Gotcha. And then the registering through the website.
Yes. So as a stakeholder, when you register at the website on the Federation webpage, pretty much $6,000 will be a cost for you to travel to India for 6 days, 7 days, 6 nights, staying in 5-star hotel, coming by economic class flight, attending the trade show, and then visiting factories. Then 3 days out of the 6 days, we are making sure that you're traveling around India, looking at other places, feeling and experiencing India. That cost is around $6,000. So we are saying, if you're a genuine seller, we qualify you as a seller, as a potential buyer. You come here on the first day, you meet all the sourcing agent managers, which you chosen by you during the entire process. When you sign up, you only pay $999, so that you also become an equal stakeholder. Equally, the exporters of the product which were coming to exhibition, they also pay the same cost. And that is how we have created this fund, which is going to basically provide the cushion for all the costs which were bearing for the seller to come to India.
So Lokesh, just
Pretty much
understand.
everything mentioned on the website, yeah.
Yeah. So just to understand a little better. So the cost to go is $6,000, or if you're qualified, it's $99, or is it both?
So if you do it on your own, you're traveling to India for 7 days, 6 nights. You want to stay in India and do pretty much what you want to do as a India, as a new country. Approximate cost will be $6,000, including your flight tickets. What we're saying is $5,000 is paid by us. You only pay $999.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're covering the 5,000 of the 6,000 cost, basically. Yeah. And then just a quick follow-up question on the sourcing agents. Do I need to have a sourcing agent, or, you were saying kind of you get one as you go through the process. And if I is required to get a sourcing agent, like, can you explain a little more, like, how are they going to help me? What's their sort of duty when I get there?
Sure. Meeting the sourcing agents among these 780 people, we are going to send you a list. You may choose maximum 10 people from there, depending upon what category of product you're looking for from India. Meeting is mandatory, but hiring them is not mandatory to avail this program. You might say after these meetings that, okay, I know what I want to do here, and I pretty much should be on my own. You'll only be connecting with the federation or my team as a travel partner. Then you are doing everything on your own. Maybe you want to take help from anybody else. We have no questions to you, asking to you.
Got it.
Okay.
Sorry to come again. You had the second question, that what do sourcing agents do for you?
Yeah. Why don't we take a quick break, and then right after that, just kind of explain a little more what the sourcing agent's going to do, either while you're there or maybe even after you leave, after we take a quick commercial break.
Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
All right, you guys, be sure to head over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics for the first 400 in reimbursements free. We're back with Lokesh. So yes, please, Lokesh, get back into the involvement with the seller and the agent, either on the trip or after we get back.
Yeah. Sourcing agents are your eyes and ears on the ground. They are pretty much making sure, as your soldiers, as your company, as your loss prevention officer on the floor, that nothing goes wrong in your supply chain. As you have been also working with sellers, the most important for a seller is that their sales are not getting haywire. The supply chain is consistently improving and improving. There is no dip, especially out of stock, or you do so much in terms of marketing and sales to stay competitive, stay on the top. So your back is covered by your sourcing agent. That's what pretty much we would say, that we are your backbone of the entire ecosystem. Where you probably will be making money is with an efficient sourcing agent, or even if you don't have a sourcing agent, with your sourcing activities. That's where I think the backbone of your entire business is, when you're selling products in a highly competitive market like Amazon or any other e-commerce. So we will service all your needs, whether it's new products, whether it's your designs, whether it's creating a trend for you, whether even guiding the seller on what should be brought from India. That's one of the most important questions ever asked by me for a lot of sellers, that I see 1,000 items in China, but I don't see a single item from India. And it's okay. You focus on what India is strong in. Don't go into apple-to-apple comparison. You will be lost, because these two countries are completely different in terms of manufacturing. They have their own strength and they have their own weaknesses. You play with your weaknesses, you play with your strength. And that is where is the foundation for any seller to create a growth in the business. When they're doing businesses, are you having a right product? Then are you having the right factory? Then are you having the right factory and right product and the right operations in terms of matchmaking? maybe it's just a startup private label seller and you would only like 500 pieces or maybe 1,000 pieces. Now you get into a factory which is supplying to all the key accounts like Walmart and I would say all the big boxes. For them, 500 or 1,000 pieces is peanuts, but they will never say no to you, because 500 to 1,000 is also adding to their production capacity, but you will be lost. So all these small issues which might create a problem for you are all the functions which a sourcing agent does for you in India.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
absolutely. And Lokesh, I want to follow up with one more question. We talked a little bit about categories. What have you seen? You know, you were kind of saying there's certain things that come from China that maybe India just isn't quite ramped up to do or capable of doing at this moment. What things have you seen that India category-wise it kind of specializes in or has been efficient at?
The top chart would be textiles. I'm not talking about textiles in terms of apparel and garment. That has been taken away by Bangladesh and Vietnam. So the India would be number one in comparison to any country today would be home textiles. Whether it's home furnishing, cushion covers, curtains, draperies, even wall decorations by home textiles. A mixed material product made of hand knotted textiles, hand tufted textiles, hand woven textiles. That is the essence of the business today. The growth of factories in this segment in 3 or 4 production centers in India is like 200% in the last couple of years. So if you are into home decor and home and gift category and you would like to do something with India, the top pick has to be home textiles.
Gotcha.
Got it.
And going back to the trip, so you said, a rough estimate, if you want to spend, 6 days, 7 nights, or 7 days, 6 nights, whatever nights. Yeah, there you go. 76 nights. And the flights would be roughly 6,000, but y'all will cover the first 5 of it. Are there specific dates for this trip?
Yes, that's a good question. We would like you to explore India as much as possible. And pretty much every month or so, there are different international shows happening around. For example, one which the one which having in August, 17 August, right after that, there are 3 days of toy fair. And if you're not happy with toy fair, we can take you to Mumbai, which is a western part of India. There is another fair happening of home and gift. So there will be something to align. Very rarely we'll have a choice where we only have our own exhibition, where we'll have exhibitors showcasing your product and we don't have any exhibition. But I would say most of the time you'll have some exhibitions to cover with you. And it's just 3 days of business. We will insist on getting you only 3 days to do business, and next 3 days you should explore India. A lot of people say, why do you want to do that? Why don't you just give us 3 days and maybe reduce the cost? And we always tell you that India is a difficult country. India is a different country. Unless you know the country, unless you're on the road, you experience the people, you can go to any part of India, you will see a common issues, common culture, common communication issues on the ground. So once you go back, and if you have hired a sourcing agent or you're not hired a sourcing agent, but you're communicating with the factory, you tend to now inbuild that experience into what you're facing as a challenge. Oh, I know this happens in India. So we want to make sure that next 3 days is also your knowledge travel. It's not like leisure or tourist, but we would count it as your knowledge travel.
So I think I heard there that the 17th of August is when this trip starts, right?
The first one is happening on 17th August. The next one we would plan for October with a big international home and gift fair happening. And if there are a lot of people, so minimum 5 or 6 sellers have to be together. That's one of the more conditions. We cannot have only one person coming and say, oh, I want to come to India. Because the whole ecosystem is, when you are putting a $5,000 for one person, it becomes difficult when you don't have a lot of exhibitors and a lot of buyers together.
Okay, so this is a show, or this is a trip to India that kind of occurs on a varied cadence depending on how many sellers you have to participate. So there may be a show on
so minimum 5 or 6.
Minimum 5 or 6. Is there a cap?
I would say 25.
25. Okay. So if you maybe don't quite have enough sellers in August, there'll, you may have enough in October, and they'll go in October, and then maybe
they'll sign up. We'll keep on telling them, and they can come up on the next event.
Okay. Gotcha. That's very helpful.
So Lokesh, to familiarize everybody a little bit with maybe some things that either set India apart or maybe even make it similar to China, I'm going to throw a couple things out and help out some of the sellers. Things like, sometimes people over in China will get, they'll get terms with the factory. Is that something that's done over in India? And then also, what about things like getting an inspection done on the products to make sure the quality's there before it ships? And then, of course, I don't know if people are familiar with the less tariffs or taxes you pay coming into the US, but maybe could you cover those three areas a little bit for sellers?
So when you mentioned inspections, when you mentioned tariffs and taxes, and what was the third one?
The third one was getting terms with the factory,
Okay.
if that's possible.
Yes. Getting terms in the factory is very much possible. A lot of factoring companies have now launched their business in India. So if you are having a good credit history, you might be able to get factoring done. New sellers, especially e-commerce sellers, I don't recommend this route because your product tends to become expensive. The moment you ask for credit, there is a risk involved. And when there is a risk involved, there is certain element of profit margin which a factory would tend to add. I would say, in fact, you should be looking at more relationship building. Couple of shipments down the line, when you have a relationship, you travel to India, meet the factory, meet their family. Maybe when they are coming to meet their other clients in the US, you can always invite them to your home or your town. And the more bonding is between you and the factory, credit becomes or business becomes secondary, then the relationship becomes first. That is actually more important in India rather than I don't think any other country would tend to say that. I've seen a lot of experienced sellers saying the same thing, that yes, relationship with factory will be the first factor, in fact, actually, in terms of credit or even in terms of problems, because problems might happen. It's a private label. It's a manufacturing happening somewhere down in a nook and corner of any other country. There could be certain supply chain issues coming up. So when you have relationships, it definitely includes also credit as a benefit when you have good relationship with the factory. In terms of inspections, India is completely at par with all the international norms. All the sourcing agents are basically competent to do inspection. They have inspectors, QAs. My office also has like 7 QAs in different towns and cities. And you can also have third-party inspection. All the international third-party inspection companies are here in India to make sure that you get a right product. And in terms of tariffs, yes, India is little bit expensive than China in terms of tariff. There are certain products which tariff from India is expensive than China. China, I think, still have some preferential tariffs on certain products. Logistically, I would say shipment when container wise, we are almost there now, and that is why India is now growing. Before the great pause, I would say we could have been really a good alternative to China. But after the great pause, which people call lockdown and I call the great pause, a lot of sellers have moved back to Mexico or even within America. That is the reason India again became their third choice. That if we have to move away from China, then why India? Let's go back to Mexico or maybe near shoring and what you say near sourcing. Otherwise, we are almost competitive with China in many of the categories because of their high labor cost and because of the logistic cost, almost at par with China.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, though, Lokesh, like some of the tariffs coming from China, what we refer to as like the Trump taxes or Trump tariffs, those don't necessarily apply to a lot of the stuff coming in from India, correct?
Yes, it doesn't apply to India.
Yeah, so I think people need to weigh that when they're looking at sourcing from different areas. If you're going from, and I, as you know, I've been down to Mexico and been on a bunch of trips down there, and yeah, it is convenient, but prices are high, cost of goods are higher to get there, to get it. So you really need to start weighing on, either China, Mexico, or even India. What is your landed cost? After all the tariffs and everything, you've got to weigh those to really see where you're getting the best
private
deal.
level hack you should always recommend. Ask for the landed cost.
Exactly.
What will it cost me at my warehouse, at my door? And you will get to know the price.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, what I'm getting at is I actually, before I sold my business, we were actually sourcing from China, and second was actually India. We weren't sourcing from Mexico, but that also had to do with the products we were sourcing weren't necessarily available in Mexico. And even to this day, the company that I was with is still sourcing from India, quite a few of its products. And we have great terms with the people, great relationship. We send postcards to them during the holidays, and they send some to us. So there's great relationships there. But let's move on a little bit more to, you talked about the website. there's qualifications that people can go and kind of check out. Even if they're not quite qualified, they should still probably go sign up and at least go through the information, right? So if things change or there's updated information, I don't think we had a chance to give out the website yet. I think we're kind of holding that a little bit to the end. But is there anything we missed, Lokesh, that maybe people need to know more about the hosted buyer program?
Well, I think, a set of questions which the FAQ is on the website as well. So if you go to the hosted buyer program page, you will see FAQ scrolling on your right side, and pretty much all your questions as a buyer would be answered on FAQ. And if in case we are missing any question, there is a form, there is an email, or then even the phone number is there. You can all reach out to us by WhatsApp, Telegram, or whatever you feel is good for you, and we can answer your questions.
Yeah. So why don't we give out that hosted buyer program website right now? And then maybe right after that, we'll take a break and come back and learn a little more about Lokesh. Go ahead and give that out, Lokesh, so everybody can hear what the website is to find out more for the hosted buyer program. So
it's pretty easy. It's FBA, which you all know as sellers, fba.org, organization.in. So fba.org.in. Pretty simple to understand and easy to remember.
That's easy. Federation of Business Ambassadors, fba.org.in. Yep. So Lisa's flashing on the screen, but for those listening, again, head over to fba.org.in. And this might be a perfect spot. Take a quick break, and when we come back, let's hear more from Lokesh and find out a little bit more about his company right after this quick commercial break.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
So welcome back to the show. And just real quick, Lisa's on mute and she's going to fix that in a second. But we got Lokesh on from ADK India LLC, and we were just talking about the hosted buyer program. But also be sure to head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics, get that 400 FBA reimbursements. Lokesh, lots of great information. Just so everybody knows, I've actually known Lokesh for a little while now. We had great time on an online seller cruise. Got to hear a lot about this program, a lot about himself. I'll vouch for Lokesh any time of day. So if you haven't heard his name, you will definitely be hearing it a lot more. He is absolutely the India expert, knows a lot about what's going on over there, a lot of sources and these great programs that he's involved with. So definitely check these things out. And, there's lots of opportunity there. I mean, heck, as a seller, if I had known about this program for only $1,000, getting, $5,000 in credit to go look at possibly more sources, I definitely would have took advantage of this. But just pivoting slightly, Lokesh, tell us a bit about ADK India LLC. What kind of service is it, and how long has it been around? Tell us more about it.
That's a good question. I was actually coming to it. So ADK India is my own entity, just like Federation is. I'm the spokesperson right now. I was a thought leader. We started this, but we have a structure as a federation. We have elections and we have presidents and vice presidents, and everybody has as a volunteer. So my own company is ADK India LLC, which is a US-based consulting group. I have office in Germany, which takes care of all the legal desk issues of the federation. I have office in US, which is taking care of multiple services for factories. We help factories set up their sales and distribution centers in US, both offline and also e-commerce. And my India office takes care of all the sourcing needs for my clients. So this is pretty much I've been doing since 1994. So it's almost like 30th year now. And when you say ADK India, people might tend to get confused, and where does Federation comes in? So ADK India is an entity where I make my bread and butter, but Federation is where I put my effort in community service. I help sellers, exporters, and sourcing agents build businesses with India at its focus. That's what I would say.
Got it. Awesome. And where can folks learn more about ADK India and get in touch with you if they have any questions?
I have a YouTube channel. I'm thanks to a few e-commerce sellers. They have motivated. We have accountability group. So I'm very now active on my YouTube. In fact, I initially had like 100 odd followers. Now it's almost reaching 300 in the last 2 months. A lot of content for you. on my YouTube on in terms of sourcing, in terms of trends, in terms of what exactly you should be looking at when you are looking at India. Then Federation also has a YouTube channel where we talk about hosted wire programs and other issues like cargo damage claims and payment recoveries. I also have Instagram, and you should go on Instagram and you see all resources. There are a lot of templates, a lot of resources, and I would say formats available to you as a seller. For example, what should be a standard photo for format? You should ask your factories whether you're doing it from China, whether you're doing it from India, Vietnam, Bangladesh. There are certain things which you must require in a photo for format. So that is easily available. You go and access it on my Instagram. Standard factory questions, FAQ. If you're looking at a new factory and as a seller, you are a buyer to the factory, what kind of question you should ask? So there are 3 different FAQs I've mentioned on that on the resources. You can customize it based on what business you have, but that will give you, especially a startup seller, they will give you pretty much a long food for thought. Okay, how do I approach the factory? There is one research which says, okay, how do I find products in India? Because India doesn't have Alibaba. Or if even we have Alibaba, there are maybe 100 or 200 factories from India, while we have, I think, close to 20,000 factories in India. So how do you find a product without Alibaba, without any international trade fair? So all these resources are available on the Instagram.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
And if you guys are interested in learning more about ADK India directly, you can go to adkindia.me or email Lokesh directly at lp@adkindia.me. And then Lokesh, just one final question for you before we sign off. Just any tips for folks traveling to India in general? Should they get a lot of Indian currency, or are they okay to use their credit cards or
a Visa?
Or Visa? Do they need a Visa, or are they okay with a passport? Like, give us a couple of tips there.
Yeah, we have online visa for on-arrival visa now for business as well as travel, and pretty much your US currency, your debit cards, credit cards, all even American Express cards are all acceptable at most of the locations. India is very growing economy now, so a lot of things have opened up in the last 30-40 years. So I don't think so you have any problem coming to India. My only request would be come with an open mind, especially when you have experience in China. Do not try to copy your China experience into India. Otherwise, you will fail. You need to look at it from a very different perspective. Just like when you're traveling to Mexico and you have been to China, you understand. Just because we are neighbors, people think, oh, India and China should be almost, for me, it should be the same experience. No. It should be, your feeling should be as equal to what you do. Maybe you're going to Mexico, you may be going to Colombia or whatever, compared to China. And then you'll see a lot of immense opportunities and business growth coming from India.
Awesome. Good tip. Thank you, Lokesh. Appreciate your time today and sharing with us about this awesome program. I definitely think I can't see it not being successful. If I were a seller, I would be taking advantage of it. So
thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Rob.
Awesome. And thank you for everybody who tuned in today. If you liked what you heard, be sure to give us a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the show, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.